This thing has 6 wheels, 2 levels, a cockpit that looks like it belongs inside a spaceship, and a roofline so sharp it could cut glass. And none of it exists. Quick note before we go anywhere. What you are looking at right now is the Eclipse Orion, an AI-generated concept motorhome. No factory, no production line, no price tag, 0 real-world constraints. And that is exactly what makes it worth every second of your time. Because when you remove the engineers arguing about cost and the accountants arguing about margins, this is what design actually wants to become. Here is what we are doing today. We are starting with that front face, because it is making a statement most real motorhomes are too afraid to make. Then we are going to walk the full exterior, decode what that double-deck silhouette is actually solving, and then I am going to take you inside and build the interior from the outside in, the way a detective would. And there is one decision at the rear of this vehicle I have genuinely not seen in any concept I have analyzed before. I am saving that for when we get there. Let's go. Look at that front face and tell me the first word that comes to your mind. Because mine was spacecraft. Not bus. Not motorhome. Not even coach. Spacecraft. The Eclipse Orion opens with a face that is completely flush. No grille. No air intake aggression, no traditional front cap softness that you see on every Class A from every manufacturer right now. Instead, what the designer has done is build an angular faceted nose, almost like an origami fold, with razor-edge LED strips cutting horizontally across the lower section and a single 4-pointed star emblem sitting dead center. That emblem is doing a lot of work. It signals that this is its own universe. Not borrowed from a car brand, not a rebadged bus, a standalone identity. That 4-pointed star matters more than it looks. Right now in the RV world, there is a real conversation happening. People are tired of motorhomes that look apologetic. They are enormous, they dominate the road, and yet somehow most manufacturers design them to look like they are sorry about that. The Eclipse Orion is not sorry about anything. Move to the side profile, and the first thing you notice is the glass. There's a lot of it. The upper deck runs an almost continuous panoramic glazing line from the front pillar to about 2/3 of the way back, smoked, deep-tinted, borderline black. What light does on those panels is theatrical. The amber interior lighting you can see bleeding through creates this sense of warmth behind darkness. From the outside, you do not know what is in there. And that mystery is a design choice, not an accident. The roofline does something interesting. It does not simply stack 2 boxes on top of each other the way a converted double-decker bus would. Instead, the upper deck is set back slightly and tapered. It is narrower than the lower body. The result is a silhouette that reads as a single unified mass rather than 2 separate levels bolted together. That is genuinely difficult to achieve at this scale, and whoever designed this understood proportion. The lower body panel treatment is worth pausing on. Brushed champagne silver geometric shapes are inlaid into what appears to be a deep matte black finish. These are not graphics. They are structural panel sections, angular, faceted, like armor plating on something military. The contrast between the warm metal tones and the black backdrop is intentional luxury signaling. It is the same language you see in high-end watch design. Brushed against polished. Warm against dark. Now the wheels. 6 of them. Dual rear axle. And these are not conventional motorhome wheels. They appear to be deep-dish turbine-style rims with almost no visual gap between the rim face and the rubber sidewall. Very low profile. Very deliberate. Most motorhomes run wheels that look like afterthoughts. These look like the designer spent as much time on the wheel design as the roofline. The stance is wide, planted, and it communicates one thing clearly. This does not move politely. Now, I promised you something at the rear. And here it is. The back end of the Eclipse Orion has an upper deck overhang that extends beyond the lower body. And beneath it, there appears to be a recessed outdoor terrace zone. Look at that rear 3/4 view. The upper level creates a covered canopy over what is essentially an outdoor living deck. Not a slide out. Not an awning. A structural outdoor terrace built into the architecture of the vehicle itself. I have analyzed close to 60 AI-generated motorhome concepts on this channel. I have not seen this before, and it changes everything about how you think about what this vehicle is for. Which brings us inside. Let me be transparent about something. We do not have full interior renders for the upper living deck. What we do have is the cockpit, and it tells us almost everything we need to know about design intent. The rest, I am going to build for you the way a forensic architect would, working from what the exterior tells us and what the proportions demand. Start with the cockpit. That dashboard is a 3-panel digital display system, a wide central navigation and system screen flanked by 2 secondary displays that appear to handle vehicle telemetry and environment controls. The steering wheel is flat-bottomed, slim, and the rim material appears to be contrast-stitched leather. Everything in that cockpit is dark. Dark headliner, dark surfaces, dark rim. The only light sources are the display glow and what appears to be a thin ambient strip running along the ceiling arc. It feels like the inside of a private jet, not a motorhome. The seat visible in the cockpit shot is wide, deeply bolstered, and the headrest has integrated wing support. You could drive this vehicle for 6 hours and get out without your back knowing. The windshield angle is steep and dramatically raked, much more aggressive than any production motorhome. That raking creates an unusual driver experience. The horizon line feels lower, which psychologically makes the vehicle feel faster and more purposeful from behind the wheel. Now let me detective the rest of this. The external proportions suggest a habitable length of somewhere between 14 and 16 meters. That is approximately 46 to 52 feet in real-world scale. With a double-deck layout and the upper deck being set back approximately 1/3 from the front, the likely zone layout works like this. The lower deck runs the full length. Front section, cockpit, and a transition lounge zone with direct views through those massive, smoked side windows. This is where you sit on a highway morning with coffee and watch the landscape move. The windows are large enough that from a seated position, the framing essentially disappears. You are not looking through glass. You are sitting inside a moving panorama. Mid-lower deck, kitchen, and dining. The surface area the exterior length implies is generous. This is not a galley kitchen squeezed behind a partition. This concept imagines something closer to an island format kitchen. Induction surface, integrated appliances behind cabinetry that matches the exterior panel language. Dark, textured, warm metal trim. Think of a kitchen designed by someone who also designs yacht interiors. Rear lower deck, bathroom, and technical systems. The engineering constraints of water management in a vehicle this size are real, even in concept territory. A walk-in shower is almost certainly what the designer intended here. The rear width and the exterior indication of a structured terrace above means there is volume available that a traditional motorhome rear simply does not have. Now the upper deck. This is where it gets interesting. Based on the exterior roofline taper and the panoramic glazing, the upper deck is almost certainly a sleeping and private lounge zone. The ceiling height up there, using the wheel diameter as a rough scale reference, is likely somewhere between 1.8 and 2.1 meters. Enough to stand. The rear terrace access would logically be through the upper deck, a sliding or folding glass partition at the rear that opens the interior directly onto that covered outdoor deck. Imagine waking up in that upper sleeping space. Floor-to-ceiling smoked glass on the sides. A raked panoramic view forward. The covered terrace behind you accessible through a wall that folds away. You are not in a motorhome. You are in a penthouse that happens to be parked somewhere extraordinary. That is the experience this concept is selling. And the real RV market has not caught up to it yet. If the Eclipse Orion were ever engineered for reality, the powertrain conversation starts with one unavoidable fact. Something this size, with this design language, and this positioning cannot run on diesel. Not in 2025. Not with the direction California and 6 other states are pushing emissions regulations for heavy coaches. The market the Eclipse Orion is targeting would not accept it anyway. Full electric is the only logical answer here. In a real-world engineering scenario, you are looking at something in the range of 500 to 700 kilowatt-hours of battery capacity, comparable to what heavy EV coach manufacturers like Arrival and BYD are developing for long-haul transit applications, scaled for a luxury context. That gives you genuine 300-plus mile range between charges, which for the kind of travel this vehicle is designed for, destination to destination, scenic routes, not cross-country sprinting, is entirely workable. The 6-wheel layout with dual rear axle strongly implies dual motor architecture. 1 motor per rear axle. That is not just a performance choice, it is a stability engineering choice. A vehicle this tall and this heavy needs torque vectoring between axles to stay planted on mountain switchbacks and long highway grades. The solar situation on that roof is real, but it needs honest framing. A roof this size running high-efficiency monocrystalline panels generates somewhere between 3 and 5 kilowatts under ideal conditions. That does not charge the traction battery meaningfully. What it does do, and this matters enormously for the target buyer, is run the interior systems indefinitely when stationary. Climate, lighting, refrigeration, entertainment, all sustained without connecting to shore power. For someone parked on a private estate or a remote plateau for 3 days, that is not a small thing. The cockpit display we saw suggests predictive route planning with charging infrastructure integration. The system knows where the next high-capacity charger is, adjusts driving behavior to arrive with optimal battery state, and preconditions the interior climate before you arrive at camp. None of this technology is speculative. It exists in production EVs right now. Scaled to this platform, it simply becomes standard. So what is the Eclipse Orion actually doing well? The proportional resolution of the double-deck structure. Most double-decker concepts, and there are a lot of them right now, this is genuinely a hot space in concept design. Look like someone stacked 2 things that were not designed for each other. The Eclipse Orion taper on the upper deck, the way the roofline steps in and back, creates a single coherent object rather than a stacked one. That is hard to do. Most designers do not bother. This one did. What seems impractical? The wheel and tire spec. Those low-profile turbine rims look extraordinary. They are also completely incompatible with anything resembling off-road or uneven surface use. And a vehicle with outdoor terrace architecture and that kind of adventurous visual language is absolutely going to attract buyers who want to park somewhere beautiful and remote. There is a tension there between what the wheel says and what the rest of the vehicle promises. A real engineering team would fix that in the first design review. Most impressive detail? The rear terrace overhang. I keep coming back to it. In a design school critique, that is the first thing I would point to. It is the one decision that moves this concept from impressive motorhome to mobile architecture. Those are genuinely different things. One thing I would change, the front emblem. The 4-pointed star is bold and clean, but it reads slightly anonymous. For a concept this resolved, that emblem needs to carry more weight. It needs to be the thing you recognize from 200 meters away. Right now it is not quite there. What does the Eclipse Orion signal about where luxury mobility is going? It signals that the conversation has shifted. The question used to be, how do we make a motorhome more comfortable? The new question is, how do we make a motorhome more architectural? How do we make it feel like a destination in itself, not just a vehicle that gets you to one? That is a fundamentally different design brief, and the Eclipse Orion is one of the more convincing answers I have seen to it. Here is your question for today, and I genuinely want to know where you land on this. That rear terrace, outdoor living space built into the structure, or a nightmare in rain, cold, and high winds that ruins an otherwise perfect concept? Drop it in the comments. There is no neutral answer here. If this is the kind of analysis you come to YouTube for, the image, the detective work, the honest take, Subscribing is simply the most efficient way to be here for the next one.